Hello there, welcome back to my channel. It is of course Chelsea of She Designs Things, and in today's video we're going to be creating these product cards. So of course, if you would like to know how to create these product cards to go inside of your Google site, then stay tuned. Alright, so today's video was actually requested. So this individual asked if I could make a tutorial on embedding Google product cards into Google Sites. So I do have a video about product cards, but I asked if they wanted to see something specific style-wise. So this is cards with rounded edges, images, text, and a button. So Alex, thanks so much for being patient. This video is for you. Alright, so for those of you who are interested, I do actually have some product codes for you to play around with. These are simple product codes that you can find on my sierraproject.org. That's SIEARA. It's also linked down below. So here is the sample card here. This one uses a transparent background. So here is the script that you will use to put, the product card in there. Here is another one that has a shadow box around it, and you can change the background color of the box if you would prefer. And this one is for PayPal, so I specifically listed that this is where you're going to put the host value for your PayPal button. Is there any others? Not on here, but that's okay because we're going to be creating the ones that you just saw. So in today's video, I should also note that I'm going to try my best to use as little technical jargon as possible. I want this to be easy to understand. So it's going to be really tricky for me to not call things what they specifically are. But the reason I want to not use such technical jargon is because I know that a lot of people don't know what attributes are, or they don't know what CSS is, and they don't know what a tag is. And so when I am creating tutorials, I have to try to think about it from the perspective of someone who has no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm going to use simple words like the little @ sign and the little parentheses. I'll do it that way because trust me, you'll learn as you go forward in HTML and in your journey in HTML. But until you get to that point, you are definitely going to want to have someone show you just the general where to make changes to things. And then you'll start to pick up on the lingo yourself. Okay, so the first product card we are going to be working with is this particular one here. I'm just going to show you how to make changes to it and how to pretty much manipulate the HTML and CSS that I have in here to create a similar style or design, or make changes when you do come across product cards online that you want to use but you really don't have any idea what you're doing. So I'm just going to show you where to make those changes to make these product cards work for you. So here is that product card. It's really simple. I am using W3 Schools to help me generate the button, but I'm going to share with you kind of a secret on this particular setup and why I didn't even need to use the W3 Schools. You can make literally this look exactly as it does in CSS without doing any of this extra stuff that I've done. So first and foremost, this head part you really don't need. You can remove this here because when you're embedding it into your Google site, you are not going to need that. Secondly, you do need to have a place to host images for your products. I like to use postimage.org. It's free and it's a great place to just kind of dump some photos in there when I'm not doing an image carousel, and then bada bing, there you have it. So here is that post image, yada yada. I'll leave a link down below so that you're also able to check it out. I do need to change the alt text because I kind of kept it as a standard that just loves nature, but you will have to have some alt text in there. Now let's go ahead and get into all of these fonts you see that I have imported from Google Sites. I have 4 fonts listed because typically I use these 4 fonts interchangeably in this design that I've been working on, and instead of me removing it and going back and forth to adding it back in, I just decided to leave them in here to make it super easy for me to make changes to. When you're doing the add import, it actually goes inside of the style section and not above the style section. When you're doing the link option, that generally will go above the style section. Right below the fonts that I also have the tag to eliminate those, you know, square bars, the scroll bar on the side, because I don't want to have the scroll bar. This is a simple way of not having the scroll bar. There are dozens of ways to literally write the same thing. That'll do the same thing, which is remove the scroll bars. You can also change the colors of the scroll bars if you want to have them, change the thickness, make them thicker, make them thinner. But if you're like me, you just don't want to have anything to do with scroll bars at all, just remove them. All right, so next we have what's known as the body. This body, quote unquote, for this particular style is going to affect the general things that are written inside of this container. When you're writing HTML, you do have to go in a specific order, and there's like an order of operations associated with writing HTML. Actually, with writing pretty much anything, it's like an order of operations. So I do have it set to railway, but I can make changes and make it be anything. So I'm going to say this is now sends, but that's not going to make any changes really to here except to the button. So let me just go back. So go back. Thank you. And the reason I say that's not going to make any changes to it is because if you notice, I have associated a style with each part of text. So this part of text here, the paragraph, that is the P, that is associated to here. And I'm still using railway, but I wanted to change the font size. So I really didn't have to include this portion in here. Not at all. So I'll even show you what happens once I delete this section here, because the body is already set to be railway. There you have it. Nothing changed. And again, that is because the only thing I needed to change was the size of the font. So maybe I want to make this 25. Now it's 25, but I'm keeping it at railway. But if I wanted to change the font and use, say, a different font, which is why I had it set up that way in the first place, then I would go ahead and add that information back. So I'm going to set this back to 14 just for this video's sake. Again, if you see a P, that is affecting the paragraph. If it's something written in the body and that doesn't have its own tag associated with it, then it's going to use whatever is written for the body. The next part of fonts, we have the H3. So I'm using the H3. Where am I using it? For the section here that says planning a vacation. Technically, I could have put the H3 above the P, but I was lazy. I'm still working on this one. It's a work in progress. I just haven't made changes to it. So anywho, I made it bold, which is why you see that there are these B's here. So if I were to remove the B's, then I wouldn't have to deal with the bold. And just to give you an idea, because like I said, it is a work in progress. If I were to change this font here that says vacation planning, and it is the H3, and I wanted to make it like, I don't know, let's say a 400 or a 200. It's still a pretty thick font. Let's say 600, 400 here. So it's still a pretty thick font, but I do have the B. So if I were to remove this, let's see. You see how I removed the B, which is the bold tag. Now it's back to being the actual font size that it's supposed to be. So I had it set to being that way, but I'm just going to remove it right now just to kind of show you, give you an example. So maybe you're selling something like some shoes or something. This would link to whatever you're purchasing, like selling. But anywho, this would be the product name. And say you didn't want it off to the side, you wanted it centered, you can definitely make it centered, because again, I literally just wrote it in a way that was going to be simplistic. heading on over to that H3, and I do have a capital, but that's because again I'm lazy. I haven't fixed any of the little quirks of myself, which is usually leaving my text in capital. So if you don't want this in the left, you would change the left text alignment to centered if you can't type, or center I should say, and that'll put it dead center. And then if you wanted to, you could change the weight of the font here to 600 or to 900, whatever the font weight allows for in here. And if you're ever lost and you're like, I don't know what font weight to put, if you scroll back up to where I have the @ signs, you'll see the font weights. So I have font weights inside of 100, 200, 300, but I do know that this font also will go up to 900, just kind of like this one as well. And display, I don't think it has display, but it does. And so anyways, you can always head on back to fonts.google.com if you're also trying to figure it out. All right, so moving on down a little bit more, we have this bar here. So this bar is literally just because I wanted it to have a certain aesthetic. It is HR. If you don't want the bar, just hit delete and it's gone. But if you're like me and you do want that level of separation because you wanted it to look a certain way, just keep it in there. You can also change the way it looks. So I have it right here is where we'll change the way that it looks. So maybe you don't want it to be so thin. This is where you'll change the thinness. So I'll say that it is probably like a 5. And now you can see it is absolutely massive. It's huge. So let's just go ahead and make it back to smaller. You can make it hairline thin. You can also put it like a 1, so that's sort of thick, or if you're like me, I like it as a 0.6. 0.06. And if you prefer, you can also set this to pixels, and we're gonna say 5. See, there's a million different ways to write the same information in HTML, which makes it so fun and easy. I did point out that I'm using W3 Schools to help with the button. But it is not necessary if you do not want to use W3 Schools for the button. Like if you're like, man, but I want to know how to write a button and make it simple. Well, I'll show you. So I am using a general container. This is linking back to W3 Schools CSS, but if I remove this, now I have it's not linking back to there. So the button itself has gone back to being really small. But I'm still using the W3 Schools tags, like the W3 buttons. So I need to change them in order for them to work appropriately. Starting with this one. Actually, we'll start right here. So I'm going to remove the W3 that's in front and just change it to button. Now this doesn't have anything associated with it because these are mismatched. So as you see right here, I'm starting right here where the A is. I haven't actually put in anything for the class. So I'm going to remove the W3 before here. But as you can see, I still have where it says a W3 large, extra large. So I'm just going to remove those two and put that back in. Need your quotes. And now let's go ahead and work on this button's style. Here we have that button, the information for the button, the radius for the button. I mean, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to make the button look appropriately? We can start by changing the font size. So I'm going to change the font size to say 14. See, that made the button bigger, and I'll show you. Back to like a 9, super small, and 14. I added an extra dash. Move that. Cool. So now we have this set to 14. Just bear with me, you know. I'm trying to think how to say this. So now it's like, but it's too close to everything. That's where the word padding comes in handy. So as you can see right here, the container has its own padding. So I'm just going to copy the container padding. I'll show you what it does to the button though, because it's going to look really crazy. So right underneath it there, I'm going to go padding. Now the button looks crazy because it's too big. So we need to adjust its size. So I'm thinking about a 5 and keep the width. You can set the width however, let's say 60 just so you can see. So there you go, 60, nice and big and chunky. Or you can go back and set it to 5. Now again, I'm gonna say 10. All right, so we'll have it set in there. It's still looking crazy because it has an underline. So how do you get rid of an underline when you have a button and it's reading it more so like a link? Well, it's very simple. The easiest way to remove the link is to set what's known as a text decoration. So we're just going to say text, well, if I can type, text dash decoration, and we're going to say none because we don't want underline, stroke, none of that. So now you see I don't have that line anymore for the button. All right, so now really specifically, since Alex asked so nicely, how do we make this stuff round? What did we do to the border, first of all? So when you want to make something round, you usually want to address the border radius of something. So our button, for example, since I removed the W3 schools, I don't have their style to go off of to just use the word circle to make this round. So what I'm going to do is change the border. So I'm going to say that the border is 5 for the button on one side. So it's 5 and 5 and 5. Now it's more curved. Now say you wanted it way round, so I'm going to say 25. And now I have this really cool angle, or maybe I want it to be about 30. So since it's 30, I'm going to set the entire thing to be 30. So both sides to 30. Now I have the pill shape. So 30 and 30 on the button makes that pill shape. Now say you decided, but, Chels, I want to have the container. So this container, everything that's inside of here be round. I want the edges of the container to be round, like a round product card. Also super easy to do if we're working with a border radius for this simple card here, container. We just want to make sure that we adjust the radius here. So I'm going to say that is 25. And now we have a round style. So now I am going to do one other thing, and that is change the background to be, let's see, it was blue. Oh, geez, hold up. Blue. Ta-da! So the container, you definitely want to make sure you either add in a color or make it transparent if you do not care if you want a color. So if I remove the color here, it was white before, so I'm going to just remove it. Remove where it says color. Copy this, and then I'm going to just show you how to add it into the Google site. And that's pretty easy to do. So scroll here. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to double click, embed, paste, and insert it. Yay! Okay, so I moved it down. So I'm going to move it so that it's not way down here, just so I can show you. Okay. Let me move this one. Cool. So change this color to that blue color again. And then I'm just going to resize. And then I'm going to just drag this down just a little bit now so you guys can see it. I'm going to pull this up so when I scroll, it scrolls pretty easy. All right, so now let's look at it in a mobile view to see if it's going to look the way that we want. So it's pretty narrow because we made some pretty drastic changes to the way that I would have it look. So we would have to make just a couple tweaks to the size of the frame in order so it doesn't look so crazy. So we don't have to keep dragging down because we don't want that Grand Canyon size gap towards the bottom, which would be easy to take care of. But there you have it. There is your simple product card with rounded corners. And obviously I am going to leave these style product cards in the Sierra project so that you're able to make changes if you want and create your own little product cards. All right, so here is a simple, PayPal add to cart one that I have on my that's already available on sierraproject.org. And again, literally the background is white. If you wanted to change the background, you would just go and change it to a different color. So I'm going to just say pink, and now the background of the card is pink. The image is here. Again, the image you just kind of throw up it from post image, or if you're using Unsplash or something like that, you can also add it from there. What next? So the button, the card button, we can change in here. The price color we can change. Everything's using the same font, which the font is Bell Ulta. Let's say you added an image into this product card and you weren't sure why you had, let me show you something here. This happened, the button. You're like, hey, why is the button sticking out? Well, that's because you have an overflow. So we need to hide it. So I just use overflow hidden, and that is used on the card so that anything that is placed inside of the card is hidden within the borders of the card. Very easy, very simple. Now, let's say you wanted to change the border style. Instead of it being solid, maybe you wanted it to be, I don't know, dashed or dotted or something like that. So adding the border style is super easy. So I have it set to solid, but let's say I wanted it to be dotted. Now it's dotted. So let's say you wanted it to be inset, set. So now it's inset. Or if you don't want it to be inset, say you wanted it to have a ridge. Now it has a ridge. So different ways of putting descriptions for your border. So it's totally your choice. I'm just going to go back to solid. And then let's say the button, you decided that you wanted it to be a different color. So I'm going to go and change the button, say the button color is now green. So now we have this green button, and let's say you don't want it to go the entire width of the card. So I'm going to change the width to 50%, or maybe you want to change it to 75%. It's totally your choice. Now it's 75%, but you really don't like that it has borders on it, like that it's a square shape instead of round. Super easy. Just go ahead and make a change to it. I'm just going to copy this real quick. So now let's go ahead and add a border radius. I'm going to just add this right underneath the border radius. Underneath the border. And I'm going to set the radius to, say, 20. I don't know. 20 seems high. Yeah, let me just say 20. So now it's 20, it could be 25. 25, so now it's more of that pill shape, but you might have at the bottom, not enough space. So I would need to add what's known as a margin. So let me remove this from here because I have a 15. Add that back. And now I'm going to say margin. So you can have a margin be auto, or you can specify what you're talking about. So I'm going to say the bottom of this button is what I want to target. So margin dash bottom. And then what I want to change it to, I can't spell apparently, bottom. And then I'm going to say that I need to have a little bit of space in between the bottom of the card and the button. So I'm going to set it to 15. And there you have it. Now I have some space, or even let's say you can say 25. Actually, you could say 1. Same difference, or you can say 100%, or you can say 10%. There is a right and a wrong way, by the way, of writing this, so don't just take my word for doing things, because I just do things all kinds of ways. So percent, we can say this is 25% or 15% or 30%, which makes it super long. It's totally your choice. It just, remember, however you type it will affect what it looks like. So I'm going to say 5%. And there you have it. Now I have this lovely round card. Maybe you want to change the border radius to be a different amount. Maybe you want it to be 50 instead of 25. So I'm going to just change all of these sides to 50, or the top to 50, and set the bottoms to 0 and set this side to 0. So now we have that window shape, and this is also a good way of making a frame. You can just make it look like this window. So there you have it. Super simple product card with button, this add to cart PayPal button. So now let's look at the last card that I want to show you. All right, so here is our final card. It's more like just kind of what you would see in the hero section. Sometimes you see cards in that hero section that's separated from the background, and this is so the case with this one. What I did was I made it into like a shadow box around it already, but then when you hover, it does have a bit of a harder effect. So that is literally written right here for the container. If you don't want that, you would simply just hit delete, and then you wouldn't have that there anymore. Obviously delete the period, or else it'll kind of mess up your stuff. But I'm just gonna go ahead and show you. See, now when you hover, it doesn't have any effect at all, but I'm gonna add it back because I do want it back. So add it right back in there. Same for the button. If you want the button to be smaller, you would change the button information here. So say we wanted the button to be, I don't know, only like 50% of this, so set it to 50%. And maybe we didn't want to use the pointer as the cursor. Maybe we wanted to use crosshair, so crosshair. So now you see when we hover over it, we have that crosshair effect, and that looks pretty cool. Now this is a call button, so that's why I'm using the tel down here. So when you hover over it, it gives a phone number. Let's see, we are using the appropriate tags here because, again, screen readers will be able to read this information even if social media sites search engines are not. So this will say, you know, in H1 here, that's where you would change it. All of the font is pretty much the same. I did not separate it out, so everything's using the same font. Now, what if you wanted to change the colors of the buttons? Well, again, the card, this is the card, button, and this is the button. So background color is yellow, so the only thing that's yellow on here is the button. So the card, button, background color is yellow. So think of it like when you're having a conversation about something. That's literally how it's written. Now I am doing something a little bit different in this one, where I'm using italics. So if you want to use italics specifically just for the paragraph, what you would do is you wouldn't put it here for the body. You would then come over here and create a tag for the paragraph. So the paragraph is the letter P. As you can see right here, letter P. So since it's the letter P that I want to create that italic for, I'm then going to create a bracket around it. Now when you see this, you're like, oh man, what did I mess up? Trust me, you didn't mess anything up. Just hit enter, kind of fix your stuff. And I'm going to just copy this line here, copy, and I'm going to paste it here, and then I'm going to delete the italics. Now what that did was set the paragraph to have the P, and then it's going to bother me, so pardon me, space, and add another space. Okay, so now what we have done is given the paragraph the italic effect, but we don't have the italics attached to the H2 nor to the H1, so not to the quote-unquote title for Google sites. All right, so now let's say you want to change the text on the button. Obviously, I don't have anything in here for the buttons specifically, so we would have to make sure that we put something in for the button. So the button, we have the font size, so maybe we want to change the font size to about 15, make it a little bit smaller. That makes it smaller, and maybe we want to, trying to think, maybe we want the button to be italics as well. So if you want the button to be italics, you would literally add the same thing in. So I'm just gonna add that. What, did I not put it? Okay, hold on. There we go. All right, so now it is italic, and we have that style. Now maybe we don't want it to be all capitals, so let's just go in and change this to be like lowercase letter. Consultation. I can't spell. Let's hope that's right, because not today. So we can make it look this way. Maybe we want the button to be centered. Ooh, so that's one. People are like, how do I get the button itself to be centered? You need to put the button in the center. All right, so we are going to use the center. So we'll say margin left 25%, which will actually make the button be in the center. And I'll show you what that looks like once you add it to your Google site. So spanning across, lowering it, making it a little smaller, making it larger. It's 25%. So that's how we're going to do it, because I'm lazy today. Or maybe we want the background to be different. Maybe we want the background to be colorful. So I'm going to show you really quickly how to have a colorful background. So let's say we wanted to have a gradient effect instead of a flat gray background. What we can do is change the effect of the background. So to do that, we first need to decide how we want the effect to appear. I want to have a linear gradient. So in order for me to have a linear gradient, I have to specify that that is what I would like to have. So to do that, I would simply say linear and dash gradient. Now, once you have the gradient, you need to kind of put the degree in which you want it to go. So let me just think. All right, so now two things to note. Why isn't the color showing up? It's very, very, very easy, very simple reason why the color isn't showing up. I have a space. I have an extra space between here and here. So I am going to delete the space, and there you have it. There is my gradient. Now, what if you didn't want to have a linear gradient? You need to know what style, what direction you want to rotate colors in. So if you don't want a linear gradient, what do you want? So let's just say that I want this to be a radial gradient. And if you're not familiar with what a radial gradient is, it's more like, not really like a circle. I'll kind of show you here. So this would be considered like a radial gradient, as you can see. So I'll try to leave a link down below so that you guys can go ahead and check out the different types of gradients that exist. But let's say that I do want to have that radial gradient. So first thing I'll have to change is from linear to radial, and just changing the word isn't going to change it, just so you know. So IAL and then dash gradient, and now we need to specify some information, and we are going to first remove this portion of it because this needs to put an ellipse, and there you have it. Now say you want it to look a little bit different. You're like, man, it just looks like a hot spot in the middle. So we can say ellipse in a certain percentage. So we can say 80, would it be 90%? So we'll say ellipse, and then farthest corner, and I'm going to say at 80. So that kind of pushed it over, and then let's say 80 percent. There we go. So now you see kind of lowered it down to the side, and we can go ahead and change this. We can make this 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. And if we were to change this to 90, 80. See how the degree is changing? 60, well, too close. 60, 50, 40, 30, and so on and so forth. So you guys kind of get the point. But that's how you'll be able to add a gradient to the background, is literally just adding a gradient. So this is why hex colors are so important to web designers and kind of designers in general of things that are digital, because we use them to create gradient backgrounds inside of websites, cards, product cards, whatever the case may be. Kind of use them all the time. It's, you know, it's kind of our thing. All right, so we are completely done with this product card here, or this card in general. So now we're going to add this to our Google site, and I'm just going to paste the information in there, insert it in here, and I'll pull this down. I'm pulling down just to match that one because it's kind of driving me crazy. Move it over to the side, make it smaller, you know, just so you can see what it looks like. And let's see what it looks like kind of on a phone a little bit. There we have it. There is our product card, and we still are using the crosshairs for the button. Now obviously this font, this color is way too bright. I would change the color if it was something that I was actually working on for a client or even for myself. This would not work. It's just too light. It's not readable. It is not accessible. So I would definitely change this out to something darker. But it works as it should. When you hover over it, there you go. It's going to ask if I want to make a call, and I'm going to be like, no, because I really don't want to make a call, but that's pretty much the easy way. So I do hope this video, while kind of long, was helpful, and of course I will leave a link down below to all of the cards that I created in this video, so that you're able to play around and make changes to it yourself as well, and kind of get comfortable with HTML. Because I do plan to make more videos using HTML and CSS, mostly CSS. they're both together. All right, again, thanks so much for watching. And of course, if you have something that you would like to see, don't forget to leave a comment down below so that I can kind of make a video showing you how to do it. And if I can't do it, then I can research how to do it and learn how to do it myself. And then teach you. All right, thanks so much for watching, of course, and laters.